We have Reuters interviewing the clown, the moron, Jim Rogers, the loudmouth idiot whose track record is probably would be as bad as Peter Schiff's, except for the fact that he doesn't come out and mention specifics. Obviously, you can tell this Reuters importer is Jewish just by looking at her. Let's take a look at her name.
Jim, geopolitical concerns rising with...
Yeah, Tara Joseph, that's a Jew.
Talk of potential military action in Syria. How are these events weighing on your views towards investing?
Who cares about his views towards investing? Did Jim Rogers predict anything? No, he didn't. Let's see his portfolio returns. Get him to show how his performance has done instead of him flapping his fucking mouth all these years. This guy's a loser. Look at what he has said. Look at his track record. He's a great contrarian indicator. According to Jim Rogers, everything is one direction. Commodities are going up, gold is going up, dollar's going down, stock market's going down, right? And you'll notice whenever he wants to be emphatic and, make it look like things are obvious, they'll ask him a question and say, well, of course.
Well, Tara, I own oil, I own gold, I own things like that, and if there is going to be a war, and it sounds like America's desperate to have a war, they're going to go much, much higher. Stocks are going to go down. Some of the markets that I'm short are already going down. Commodity.
Buy gold, buy silver. The market's going to crash.
Yeah, well, Jim, too bad you didn't get in on the U.S. stock market in March of 2009 when it was 6,400. It's gone as high as 15,600. You're an idiot. And by the way, I wanted to mention something about Jim Rogers. I've mentioned this before, but of course I don't expect everyone to have seen all of my videos or have read all of my articles. But Jim Rogers is a self-proclaimed commodities expert, commodities investor, right? Well, anyone who knows anything about commodities, and I mean truly anything, not some rookie, is going to tell you that you had better know technical analysis with commodities because you don't really have a whole lot of fundamentals, not compared to other types of securities such as equities or bonds. You need to really know technical analysis. Well, Jim Rogers, despite being a so-called great commodities investor, admits that he can't understand charts and admits that he doesn't really know how to trade, right? If you're not trading commodities, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Seriously.
Is it going to go up? I mean, yeah, some of the things I own, I'll make a lot of money. I'm not particularly keen on war, I assure you.
Why don't you add the most important point there? A lot of the things that you own, you're going to lose a lot of money. I'm so sick of this fucking moron being paraded through the media. And it's shocking that, he's not even Jewish. He's like one of the few non-Jews that gets treated like Superman. But I'm so sick and tired of the media calling him a great investor when we have no evidence of that. What's the evidence? Show me the proof. All I can see is his track record from his media appearances, and it is abysmal.
But it sounds like they want it.
Is your main concern about supply chain disruptions for oil? Is that where we'll see the biggest moves?
Well, that's where we'll see huge moves, but the problem with war, Tara, and I'm not the first to know this, no matter how well the plans are made, strange things happen in war, and who knows what unintended consequences will come. But I do know that throughout history, whenever you've had war, things like food prices have gone up a lot, energy prices have gone up a lot, copper price, lead prices, all of these things go up a lot whenever there's been a war in the past.
Meanwhile, moving farther to the Far East, we're seeing something of a mini crisis around Asia. The Fed...
He's making blanket statements. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. We've been in a war now since, was it 2003? Actually, before that, Afghanistan, we've been in since, 2001, 2002. And commodity prices have gone up and they have gone down. And the main reason why commodity prices have gone up and down is because of the macroeconomic dynamics, not because we've been fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's making blanket statements.
And stimulus unwinding really affecting confidence in India and Indonesia in particular. Do you think this is a short-term blip, or do you think these countries face very rough waters ahead?
course they face rough waters ahead, Tara. You know, India and Indonesia, Turkey too, which is part of Asia, all of them have huge balance of trade deficits, which they've been able to finance with all this artificial free money that's been floating around. Now, the artificial sea of liquidity is going to end someday, and when...
Okay, so now that India is in trouble, the economy is imploded, and Indonesia is also in trouble, and Turkey as well. Of course, Jim Rogers is talking about doom and gloom. Why wasn't Jim Rogers talking about problems in these economies a while back when things were better, right? You understand, people? It's pretty obvious this guy's a clown. He's a complete clown that doesn't know what the hell's going on. Even George Soros said he's basically a bad investor. He's not a good investor.
It ends, all the people depending on this free money and this sea of liquidity are going to suffer, whether it's this week or this year or next year. They're all going to suffer.
And we're all going to suffer. Buy gold and buy commodities, right? Shut up, idiot.
Buy gold, buy silver. The market's going to crash. Go ahead and just be that doomsday guy. Alone, in your house, calling for the end of the world.
We're already, though, Jim, seeing sort of the unwinding of what happens when there's fears of that stimulus coming out. What's next for these countries? Where does it go from here?
Tara, we haven't seen much of anything yet.
I mean, listen to this guy. Listen to the you know, his little Hollywood dramatics. We haven't seen anything. What are you talking about? What a fucking loser. This guy's been saying the same shit now for how many years, right? And the stock market has soared. Wow. People, I hope you're not fooled by these con men. I hope you have your senses. I hope you're grounded. This guy says the same. You can take what he says in this interview and in most every other interviews, and you can play it over any time period, and you won't be able to tell when it was originally produced. Because he says the same shit.
In bear markets, things go down 40 to 80%, and people give up. They throw the shares out the window, and they say, I never want to invest again as long as...
So did you hear that? He says, in typical bear markets, shares or the stock market falls by 40 to 80%. That's a pretty big fucking range, don't you think? Wrong, Jim. You're a dumbass. Typical 80%? That's not typical. Sorry. You're a dumbass. You're wrong.
As I live. Sure, we've seen some declines. Have we seen panic? Have we seen terror? Absolutely not. Not in any markets yet.
Yeah, we did. We saw a lot of that in 2008 and 2009. And if you think that's going to happen again this soon, you're a dumbass.
Are you expecting panic? We've seen many crises, but do you see more panic?
Go ahead and just be that doomsday guy. Alone, in your house, calling for the end of the world.
Yes, of course. When this artificial sea of liquidity ends, we're going to see panic in a lot of markets, including in the U.S., including in West developed markets.
You heard it, people. So when the quantitative easing ends, we're going to see panic. And he just defined panic as at least a bear market, right? So in other words, he's not just talking about typical bear market. He's talking about this 80%. Can you connect the dots? You see what he's talking about? He's talking massive blowout in the U.S. stock market. So you've got it there, folks. It's on record, okay? Now, when it doesn't happen, I want you to contact this idiot. Get his email, go on his website, contact him. And you can tell him about me. Tell him I think he's a fucking moron, and I will take his ass on any day on a neutral platform. Let's go, buddy. Let's go, you old fuck.
You gotta have an end game. You can't just keep saying the market's gonna crash, the market's gonna crash. When do you admit defeat? Because again, if there's real money on the line, there has to be an out.
I mean, Tara, this is the first time in recorded history that all major central banks have been flooding the money with artificial money printing at the same time, when they've all been trying to debase their currencies at the same time.
Okay. Let me explain something to you, you senile old bastard. We're in a global depression, and we are in a global period of deflation. What do you think is going to happen? What's supposed to happen? Can you tell me? It's printing money. It is trying to push the economy, stimulate the economy. I'm not telling you that that's what I agree with or disagree with. I'm telling you that they're trying to minimize deflation and focus on a more of a bias towards inflation rather than deflation. And we still have a very low level across the globe of inflation. And some would say it's somewhat deflationary. I don't agree with that one, but nevertheless, so what's the problem with that?
This has never happened in recorded history. When this ends, it's going to be a huge mess.
Okay, you heard it, people. It's going to be a huge mess when it ends. So when the quantitative easing ends, it's going to be a huge mess. Now, of course, we can't expect the developing markets to be that stable because they're not. We're talking about the U.S. markets. He's talking about a huge mess here. So quantitative easing is probably going to end, I don't know, a couple of years. Expect a huge mess. And remember, it's due to the ending of quantitative easing, not anything else. So in other words, will we see a down period in the economy and market? Of course we will. These things are cyclical. But he's saying it's going to be due to quantitative easing, and I can guarantee you it's not going to be due to that. We have other issues. As a matter of fact, just from historical perspective, we should be hitting another recession here over the next 12 months on average, just from if you look at how these cycles play out. But it has nothing to do with quantitative easing. This guy is a doomsday moron, a gold pumping idiot. Hey, Rogers, show me your fucking performance. You're supposed to be an expert. Everyone says you're an expert. And you're on the media every fucking day. You bend over backwards to whore yourself out on the media. If you know how to make money, you wouldn't be wasting your time in the media. You're in the media to manipulate the sheep, to buy your bullshit, to pump up the price. And that's a fact. Exposed.
There has to be an end game. You can't keep saying that the market's going to crash, I'm shorting everything, and continue to say that while the market keeps going up. So until you show me what you're short and how much money you're losing, because you can't possibly be making money shorting the overall market,